for more news updates from around the world.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. The European Union says that a high-profile corruption probe in Ukraine shows Kyiv's anti-graft agencies are working after investigators carried out searches targeting President Volodymyr Zelensky's top aide. Britain says talks to join the European Union's defence fund SAFE has broken down in a major setback to a much-wanted post-Brexit reset of relations aimed at strengthening the continent's defence. The United Nations states that the killing of 2 Palestinians who were shot dead in the West Bank while seemingly surrendering to Israeli forces was an apparent summary execution. US President Donald Trump announces a sweeping set of immigration proposals. He vows to permanently pause migration from all third world countries and launch what he described as reverse migration to restore order in the United States. Russian President Putin meets his Hungarian Prime Minister Orban in Moscow, praising his stance on Ukraine and suggesting Budapest could host talks with the US on the conflict. Orban stresses that Hungary will continue relying on Russian energy despite European Union and US pressure. US President Donald Trump says the United States will very soon begin action on land to stop suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers. They will soon expand operations beyond maritime strikes amid rising tension and increased US military deployments in the region. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte will remain in detention at the International Criminal Court after appeals judges reject a request to release him on health grounds. Sri Lanka deploys troops as floodwaters rise. Death toll hits 56 with another 21 people missing. Sri Lanka is currently experiencing the northeast monsoon season, but rainfall has intensified due to a cyclone. And let's focus on the top story this hour. The European Union has said that a high-profile corruption probe in Ukraine demonstrates that Kyiv's anti-graft institutions are functioning effectively. The statement comes after Ukraine's anti-corruption investigators carried out searches targeting President Volodymyr Zelensky's top aide as part of an ongoing inquiry. According to officials, the searches were conducted by Ukraine's specialized anti-corruption agencies, which have been central to the country's reform commitments. The investigation, which involves senior figures within the presidential administration, is viewed as one of the most significant corruption cases to emerge in recent months. Listen in.
Indeed, we understand that there are ongoing investigations, and we have a lot of respect for those investigations, which show that the anti-corruption bodies in Ukraine are doing their work.
Now, Brussels has welcomed the operation, noting that the ability to pursue sensitive, high-level cases is a critical benchmark for Ukraine as it seeks deeper integration with the European Union. EU officials said the probe reflects institutional independence and the will to confront entrenchment corruption, even at the highest levels of government. Glenn Grant, who's the former advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine, is now joining us live from Kyiv. All right, viewers, there's some connection issue that we are able to establish with our guest as of now, but we'll try to re-establish that connection very quickly. All right, I believe Glenn has joined us now.
Yeah, I'm here, if you can hear me.
Thanks, Glenn, for joining us here at NewsX World, and we appreciate you giving us your time. How do you view the statements that are coming in from Zelensky when his top aide is under scrutiny?
Well, there's two ways you can look at this. The first way is the way that you were talking about, which is that it means the anti-corruption organizations are actually finding their feet and finding some teeth after many years of not doing very much. That is one way. The other way is to wait and see what the outcome of the searches are, because one could be a bit cynical and wonder if the searches are not there to actually to prove innocence, not to prove guilt. So I think we have to wait and see what comes out of this. I think most people consider that Ermak, the aide, is actually taking or has been taking money out of the system, but time will tell.
Do you think the statement that Zelensky made is one similar to containing damage that has been done, because many are clearly saying the corruption allegations on his aides, one of whom is not even deported, are going to weaken or completely destroy Zelensky's cause in negotiations with Russia over the US peace plan?
Well, first of all, there are no negotiations with Russia. People keep talking about this, but the fact that Trump or Trump's team has been talking to Ukraine does not mean anything at all. And the negotiations are not likely to happen. Actually, if Ermak or any of Zelensky's team are taken away, it will strengthen his hand in the country, because for the first time he will have seemed to be involved in something clean and not actually reinforcing corruption. I don't think it'll make any difference with the Russians if they did actually get to discussions, because Putin has already said this week, in the last 2 days, that he can't negotiate with Zelensky because Ukraine is not a proper country.
All right. Well, for now, thank you for joining us, Glenn, and I appreciate you giving us your time here at NewsX World. And with that, viewers, we move on to some more news concerning the European Union. Now, Britain has announced the talks to join the European Union's €150 billion defense fund SAFE have collapsed, marking a major setback in post-Brexit relations. The UK had hoped to reset defense and trade ties with the European Union, but ahead of the deadline, Britain said an agreement could not be reached. Minister Nick Thomas-Symonds expressed disappointment, but added that Britain's defense industry could still participate in SAFE projects under third country terms. The European Union said talks had been conducted in good faith and remains committed to a UK-European Union security partnership. All right. We're expected to be joined in by a special guest on this discussion, but before he joins us, let's tell you, viewers, that significant developments have been made in this regard, and a strong announcement coming in from the Britain on joining EU's €150 billion defense fund. We're learning that talks have completely collapsed, and it marks a major setback in post-Brexit relaxations. Let's bring back Glenn into the discussion here. Glenn, what do you see of these developments and Britain's announcement of the collapse of talks with the European Union?
I think it's sad, because at the moment Britain has a huge deficit from the time of Brexit, and someone has written that they think it cost the country sort of just on 100 billion from actually having left the European Union. My suspicion is that actually that's just the easy-looking top figure, and that it's actually much worse in terms of the effect on the country. So Britain needs to actually have a better relationship with the European Union, if only for the sort of trust issue for defence.
What do you think are the other options that Britain is now going to explore who is going to fall back on as far as defense equipment and supplies are concerned?
To be blunt, there are no other options. The European Union is next door, which means that Britain logistics is much easier to the European Union than to anywhere else. I mean, it's no good having logistics to Australia or New Zealand or South America because it costs you a fortune and it's slow. So we need to get back in to close contact with the European Union to get some vitality for the economy again.
And what does it talk about the alleged new era of ties between Britain and the European Union that Keir Starmer was heard saying just some months ago?
Yeah, come on. Keir Starmer just makes lots of words. To have a relationship means you've actually got to make a relationship. Just producing something for the newspapers and for the public doesn't actually do anything. And I don't see that Keir Starmer or any of the other British government members have actually done the spade work around Europe that's required to get a proper relationship.
All right. For now, I thank you, Glenn, for joining us here at NewsX World, and we do appreciate your opinion and perspective. With that, viewers, let's shift our focus to some more news that we are getting. Now, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz has announced that Berlin will request a postponement of the European Union's planned ban on combustion engine vehicles by 2035. Speaking at a press conference in Berlin on Friday, Merz said he intends to write to the European Commission to seek permission for the continued sale of hybrid and highly efficient combustion engine cars alongside electric vehicles beyond the 2035 deadline. Let's listen in.
Ganz im Gegenteil, wir wollen die Ziele erreichen, aber wir wollen sie technologieoffen erreichen. Wir wollen sie mit einer Mobilität erreichen, die auch die Arbeitsplätze in Europa und insbesondere in der deutschen Automobilwirtschaft erhält. Ich werde darum bitten, dass die Kommission auch nach 2035 neben rein batterieelektrischen Fahrzeugen auch weiterhin Fahrzeuge mit einem doppelten Antrieb zulässt.
And we'll shortly be joined in by a guest who will throw some more light on this. But crucial to note here was the statements that's coming in from Germany. And in fact, it was made at a press conference by Chancellor Merz, who said that he intends now to write to the European Commission to seek permission for the continued sale of hybrid and efficient combustion engine for cars alongside electric vehicles, even beyond the deadline stipulated for 2035. Friedrich Merz has announced that Berlin will request for a postponement of the European Union's planned ban on combustion engine vehicles. All right, viewers, we have some more information to give you in this regard. Let's also tell you that Merz government has announced a significant spending plan, which includes a 500 billion euro fund for infrastructure and green energy, and it has in fact raised concerns among European Union governments about potential unfair competition and the impact on the single market. And now our guest, retired Major General Sudhakarji. All right, viewers, I'm afraid we're not joined in by our guest, but for now we shift our focus. The United Nations on Friday condemned the killing of 2 Palestinians in Jenin, calling it an aberrant summary execution after video showed the men appearing to surrender with their hands raised before being shot by Israeli forces. UN Rights Office spokesman Jeremy Lawrence said the incident reflects a pattern of rising Palestinian deaths in the West Bank without accountability, urging an independent investigation. Listen in.
We are appalled by the brazen killing by Israeli border police yesterday of 2 Palestinian men in Jenin in the occupied West Bank in yet another apparent summary execution. Killings of Palestinians by Israeli security forces and settlers in the occupied West Bank have been surging without any accountability, even in the rare case when investigations are announced. Impunity for Israel security forces' unlawful use of force and ever-growing Israeli settler violence must end. The High Commissioner urges an independent, prompt and effective investigations into the killings of Palestinians, and those responsible for violations must be held to account.
And now moving on, viewers, the Palestinian Authority identified the victims as Youssef Ali Assasa and Al-Muntasir Billah Mahmoud Abdullah, calling the killings a war crime. Israeli forces said they were targeting men involved in attacks, while far-right minister Itamar Ben has defended the shootings. Violence in the West Bank has escalated sharply since the start of the Gaza war, with more than 1,000 Palestinians, including 223 children, killed by Israeli forces or settlers, according to the United Nations. Israeli figures say at least 44 Israelis have been killed in related attacks and operations. And let's now welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji, who's a defense expert, joining us live from New Delhi into the discussion here. What's your opinion on the 2 Palestinians shot while surrendering? How do you see this taking course as far as the war is concerned?
Good evening, Kriti. Thank you for taking me for your show once again. All I would say, my reflections are indicative of when you are looking at larger good things to happen in the world order. Not that one is very happy about the loss of innocent lives, and that too for a favorable cause. When somebody is surrendering, they should not be targeted like this, the way it has happened. But the fact of the matter is, there is some process, some method in madness to bring this ongoing conflict to an end. Whether it will come to an end, one really can't say with assurance. But at least some effort is going on. That is the way I look at it. And second thing is, such kind of killings, they must be investigated and people should be held accountable. Israel can't have a field day. They can't have the cake and eat it too. Well, we are with Israel. Nobody is accepting terrorism the way the Hamas killed the Israelis on 7th of October 2023. But at the same time, just because the Hamas is behaving in a particular way, they cannot actually, extend their retribution in a manner which would be killing people who are surrendering. This is uncalled for. This is going to actually further provoke the Hamas, who are not prepared to surrender the arms. If they don't surrender arms, the peace proposal, 20-point peace proposal mooted by Donald Trump and his team are going to fall flat. They will have no meaning. So therefore, they need to actually put their best foot forward, work in tandem with in synergy with the effort which is being made to bring about some kind of a ceasefire, lasting ceasefire, and lasting peace in the region. Whether it happens or not, it's a matter of time that will decide. But there is a call which has been taken at the United Nations for two-nation theory. It's a long-drawn affair. It's a long game. How much will succeed, one doesn't know. But to be precise, as far as shooting of these 2 people who were surrendering, it should be investigated, and people from Israel Defense Forces or whoever is responsible must be held accountable.
Do you think any kind of US pressure will help, or will US even move to pressure Israel in this regard?
No, I don't think so. US, we need to understand, Kriti, because the larger picture is, what is Israel? Israel is not Israel what we think it to be. Israel is an extension, it's a satellite post of USA. It is extending the very concept, the philosophy of what a USA. Let me also, in your channel, I don't think I have shared this whenever you are anchoring. There is a document called as top secret document. It's known as Clean Break, 1997. Netanyahu himself was a member. There was senator. It was a bipartisan top secret document. What did the document say? It says a lot of things, but the central thing it indicates is that there is no place for two-nation theory in the Middle East. If this is what they have clandestinely, they are keeping it as a top secret thing and going on hoodwinking the entire world order and keep killing the Palestinians. Although I'm not in favor of either terrorism or denying people the rightful entitlement of the place of livelihood or the place of living. I'm not. It's some via media has to be worked out. We are in 21st century. We can't go on killing each other like this. This is not on. This doesn't go down too well with me. And I firmly believe that Israel must learn how to mutually coexist. It must go by the whenever the agreement, 1973 agreement was made. Consequent to 1967 war, they had actually captured Sinai Peninsula, they had captured Gaza Strip, they had captured the East Jerusalem, they had captured the Syrian Golan Heights, also West Bank, and as per the treaty and the agreement, they are supposed to vacate the occupied territory. This is the prime and the basic fundamental demand of Hamas. So on one hand, we tell Hamas as a political party, till now the UN has not declared them to be terrorists. So what do? The whole world order is in a quandary. We are not able to decide whether to call them as a terrorist or just to remain silent and let it go on the way it is going on. So therefore, it brings me to the point, what you are saying is that what next? Is Israel in complicit or USA in complicit with Israel? Both are one entity. It is just that USA is extending its presence, footprints and dominance in the Middle East after a haphazard withdrawal on 31st or whenever, the August 2021 from Afghanistan. Thereafter, they have woken up that no superpower would ever like to lose its supremacy and authority in the world order. So therefore, it won't allow any rising power to come near its footing. There is a reawakening in the USA. Despite the declining status of its supremacy, they are still trying to regain the space which they had very, very willingly surrendered everything to China. So they are back to Pakistan, they are back to Southeast Asia, they are back to Bangladesh and those parts of South Asia, they are back to East Asia gradually. Whether it will continue or not, we leave it to the Democrats and the Republicans of American polity. Let them take a call. Where they want to stand? Will they be able to contain, counter and contest China successfully? Because it's a strategic rivalry which is going ahead. In this marching of going ahead, who will overtake whom? That time is already started speaking. It has started revealing the details. And let's see who is going to have a better of the say.
My larger question here once again will be, does UN itself has any muscle left in its fight? It can go on to label these executions and killings as an execution summary, but is it going to have any impact? Is anybody even listening to the United Nations anymore?
No, United Nations, it should be given a different name. Maybe your generation will look up and do something worthwhile. It is a defunct organization. When the League of Nations collapsed way back in 20s and by the end of Second World War, the United Nations was formed. It was meant for 20th century. Now the threat in 21st century had changed. The dynamics have changed. The warfare, nature of warfare has changed. The threats are, people don't have to go to a training center to get indoctrinated. The internets are being used. Social media is being used. Indoctrination is taking place through telephone calls, through audio means. So therefore, what I am saying is that a different kind of a setup. So what kind of setup? But the first and foremost thing is the current United Nations, as far as, since you are asking me the question, these are my loud thoughts, and the United Nations must be dissolved at the earliest. So what next? Isn't something existing, whether failure or defunct or something is better than nothing? I would say that there's something in its inefficient form, ineffective form, would, rather than leading the world order to disaster, it is always better not to have a thing which does not represent the reality of 21st century. The reality of 21st century is the growing dominance of global south. Who is going to listen to them? Today, take the example of population of global south. It is more than 65 to 70%. Look at the GDP. It is close to 60%. The BRICS that we are talking of, way back in 95, although BRICS did not come into existence, the total GDP was just about 16%. Today, they are touching 47%. The G7 leading economies, they were at that point in time 43.4% PPP terms. Now they are down to 27% or 30%. I'm talking the relative proportionality, not by the GDP quantum. GDP quantum, they will be much more, but the proportion has actually gone up in favor of global south. So therefore, to give correct representation, have a different meaning of P5. Veto power is the one damaging power. Has it ever stopped any conflict in the world order after Second World War? Has United Nations done anything to prevent occurrence of a conflict?
Well, clearly there are voices rising from the global south for a reform of the United Nations. Always a pleasure to have you, retired Major General, on NewsX World. And with that, viewers, let's shift our focus now to some more news coming in from Romania. Now, Romania's defense minister has stepped down amid a growing controversy over false claims on his resume. He's admitted he wrote in a 2016 CV that he graduated from a university he never attended. He called it a mistake and said he didn't want the scandal to distract the country at a time when, in his words, Romania and Europe are under attack from Russia. The resignation comes as Romania continues to report Russian drone fragments and incursions along its border with Ukraine, including another drone crash earlier this week. Romania has also accused Moscow of hybrid attacks, including meddling in last year's presidential elections, which were later annulled. Now, Montano, who took office in June, announced his resignation on Facebook, saying that Romania must stay focused on its difficult mission. Prime Minister Ilie Bolohan says he will appoint Economy and Tourism Minister Radu Mirau as interim defense minister. And with that, it's a wrap on NewsX World's World Report, but do stay tuned for more international news updates.